Tell me a little bit about that time of your life and when you were speaking publicly about that.
It was 2 months away from our wedding. And April 2nd, 2005 is the day that he lost it. And then he started getting physical with me in the car.
I love how you were able to turn your story into a way of helping others.
Look, I can't fix the VA, but I can do this. And I can't walk away from those experiences and years prior that I've had with Vietnam veterans who had just returned from Afghanistan, who were on set with me, who embraced me and said, I love this.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast.
I took the blows and did it my way.
It's time. The VinnyRoc Podcast.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast. It's not a very formal kind of setting, so we just speak and talk however don't. So, but I want to mention to the audience, we just got on here and we just started talking, and Lisa, our guest today, she suspects that we met in 2016 during a Range 15. It was a showing or something, right? A film festival, a veteran film festival.
Yeah, it was a screening of the film. And I went, I went with Army Ranger Joe Dames. He was very supportive of a short film that I was doing at the time, which was actually where my project Heroic Episodes began, as a short film. And Joe was a producer on it and very supportive. Yeah,
that's crazy interesting to me because I was there for Range 15, but also I had another film that I was there for, called The Long Way Back. Was it there? It had to be. So we ended up having two different movies because we produced Range 15 sometime in 2014, 2015. And so it finally came out in 16, and that's when we were there. But at the same time, I ended up meeting Jamie Kaler. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
So one of the hosts that night was a guy named Jamie Kaler, who's an actor in Hollywood. He was on a couple TV shows for a while, and he was a funny dude, right? He was just kind of like the main MC of the night, and he's the reason that got me further into Hollywood, because I connected with him. Yeah, that night I connected with him, and he invited me and Jared Taylor, one of the other guys, to do some improv comedy called Dads in Parks. And so that was the next step of my acting Hollywood evolution, was meeting him that night and then eventually working with him later, which ended up, we filmed the first round of Dads in Parks, and then we got the funding for the second round about a year later. I flew into LA during my time filming season 2 of that. I'll call it season 2 just for ease of explaining it. That's when I had my Mayans audition, and I landed Mayans. And so full circle, that was the time. The same day that I guess we would have ran into each other is kind of the day that kind of catapulted my life into the Hollywood scene. Yeah.
Did you go to the after party after that screening for Range 15 in Virginia?
No, what I remember I didn't, because I remember I had to head home for some reason. So I ended up that night of all the showings, I ended up going straight to the airport and having to fly home. But I was like a single dad of 4 kids, and I had someone help me with the kids at the time, so I had to just get home. But I do remember the night. Yeah.
Well, I do, because I couldn't hang. I mean, I could not party that hard. And they kept bringing rows of shots around, and I was at one point just kind of.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That was the life back then of how that group kind of carried on. But that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get into the film industry? I saw that you went to school for theater, right?
I did. Yeah, I moved from the burbs of New Jersey to New York City. You know, I had always wanted to do that. I was working on a film in Philadelphia, and I met actor Vinny Vella, and he was like larger than life character, kind of like a John Gotti mobster character, you know. And he kind of took me under his wing. You know, I was the only woman on set. It was 4 a.m. You know, I had my pickup truck, and I was just sitting there on the tailgate, and all these guys kept hitting on me, you know, and he came sauntering over and he was like, "Hey, doll, these guys bothering you?" You know? And I was like,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you know, it's 4 a.m. I just want to wrap out of here, you know? And he said, "Tell them I'm your uncle. They got to go through me first, Uncle Vinny." And that's kind of, yeah,
that's cool.
That was the beginning of how I really got to move to the city, because I surely couldn't afford it. And he lived in a building that was generations of Spanish and Italian families that had passed their apartments down to family, you know. So he got me in the building. And that really started my career, because he started introducing me to, you know, a lot of influential people in the industry that he knew. And then I started at New York University. I studied film, screenwriting, and acting at NYU. And from there, I started teaching at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then I started coaching actors, you know, friends that were like, "Hey, I have this big audition. Can you help me out?" And that's how I kind of got into the business. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. And then I see that you're doing this heroic episodes. So what you're not a veteran at all, right, Lisa?
I am not. And I'm glad you asked that, because my life really opened up to the veteran world in 2012. Excuse me. I got a call from a good friend, Barry Morgenstein, one of the big headshot photographers in New York City. He's like a brother to me. And he has a very patriotic, large network of veteran friends. And he called me and he said, "You know, I have this veteran. She's an Army veteran, retired captain, who lost her sight and her leg while serving in Bosnia. And she wants to take your acting workshop." And I said, "Have her call me." So retired Army Captain Nicole Smith reached out, and she said, "You know, it's been on my bucket list to take an acting class. And, you know, would it be okay if I came into your workshop? You know, I'm legally blind. I'm an amputee. I have a service dog, Isaac. I'm coming up from Virginia." And I said, "Of course, you know, it'd be great." And she took out her credit card and she said, "You know, how much is it?" And I was like, "You never pay. You paid the greatest sacrifice. You never pay." And she got a little bit emotional over that, which I just assumed everybody would feel the way I did about that, right? And she came up and she just blew us away. I had about 30 actors in this workshop. And of course, as she walked to the front of the room, I was sitting there behind the camera. Everyone was kind of looking like, you know, what is she going to do? You know, they were very like tense. And I said, "Leslie, I gave you a commercial copy, you know, do you have any questions?" And she's like, "No, I memorized it. I'm good." She was like, you know, Vinny, her level of comfortability was amazing. She was really just at home on camera, and she delivered that commercial and it was flawless. And, you know,
that's cool.
Yeah. And everyone was like really inspired by her. And, you know, of course, I told my actors, you know, that's a hard act to follow. Like, you know, she did an amazing job. So after that experience, it sort of opened up my mind and my world. And I was like, you know, I'm working on a short film, and there's a role of a VA counselor that you would be perfect for, Leslie. You know, would you consider taking that role? And she was like, "Oh my God, I would love to." So she came back up the day we were filming, you know, from Fredericksburg, Virginia, you know, through Penn Station, which I think is a big friggin' deal, because like I have friends and family from the suburbs. They hate the city, you know, and they're like petrified of taking the train, you know. And here she is with her service dog, you know, she comes out the Queens. we're filming 14 and a half hours. I mean, you know what that's like, a long day. And, I was doting over her. It was like, do you want water? Are you hungry? What can I get you? And she looked at me. She said, Lisa, I served in the Army. You don't have to pamper me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, that's right. So then after this long day, of course, I had a hotel room for her and her dinner and everything set. And I just wanted to thank her and, honor her in any way I could. And she was like so overwhelmed with emotion. And she grabbed my hand, she hugged me, and she said, I'm going home tonight on the train. And I'm like, you're going to get home like 4:30 in the morning. You sure? And she's like, yes, I am so excited. I haven't felt this camaraderie since I served. And that stuck with me. That was it. That was like my turning point where I couldn't sleep that night because I kept replaying it in my head. I'm like, wow, if she felt that way, that was empowering, healing for her, the camaraderie she missed. Like, I wonder if other veterans would feel that way. So the next 2 short films I did, super low budget, pulling a lot of favors, how it is. And I invited veterans on set as crew, as cast. Some consulted me on the writing because I wanted it to be authentic, to the storyline of a veteran returning home. And it was amazing because every single vet on that set had, the same feeling. They loved it. They wanted to do it every day. They said the same thing that Leslie said. They had missed that camaraderie and now they were feeling that again, and really for me, I was directing, so I was able to watch the monitor and stay focused on directing. And I didn't have to worry about, transportation and safety on set and who's being fed and who needs what, So it was very cool because the veterans were the best crew I ever had. I felt very safe, and I felt like I could really just do my job. So that's really where it began.
That's what started the path of going towards the heroic episodes.
Yes. And the really key thing was the trauma, because I'm a survivor of domestic violence. April 2nd.
Yeah, I wanted to lead you into that because that's what is when you look your background up, you see that portion a lot where you've written on yourself. And that's kind of the big visual that we see.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask about that. Can you tell me a little bit about that time of your life and when you were speaking publicly about that, and a little bit? Let's get into that real quick. I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, so I did what all actors do. You start out doing, smaller projects. You do background, you do stand-in, you do whatever you have to do to kind of get in the industry and start to make your mark and build your credits and your on-set experience. So that's where I was. And my career was just starting to pop. I was starting to get those, day player roles and, starting to make progress after years and years. And I started coaching an actor who was on an HBO series that was pretty hot at the time. And I was coaching him for a while, and then we became friends. And before I knew it, we were going to film premieres together and we started dating. And before you know it, we were engaged. And it was 2 months away from our wedding. We were getting married in June. And April 2nd, 2005 is the day that he, let's say I wasn't able to diffuse him. He had one of those tempers that went from 0 to 100, and usually I grew up in a loud Italian family, and he's Italian American. So it was being loud and being boisterous was something I was very used to. So I didn't like heed the warning or see the signs. I also kind of, honestly, I really felt like I could diffuse him. And maybe in some way that made me feel needed or important. I started to play that role. And, because of who he was, people on set would come to me and say, can you talk to him? He's not happy. He's not happy about the food on set, or he's always not happy about something, And I would always be able to talk sense into him, and be like, come on, you're getting paid to do something you love. Like, just embrace it, man, And, so anyway, that day, April 2nd, 2005, we were headed home to see my big Italian family and have a big dinner at this restaurant and celebrate our wedding. And he just, he lost it. And then he started getting physical with me in the car, his SUV. He started to ragdoll me, grab my hair. You have to remember, my fiance then was big guy, really big guy, well over 270, like big hands. And he grabbed my hair and started ragdolling me and slamming my face into the console inside the vehicle and striking me. And I tried to jump out. Houston Street, 1:30 in the afternoon, New York City is pretty busy, as you can imagine. And back then there were a lot more taxi cabs, than there are now because of Uber and everything. But so in 2005, Houston Street was jamming, and I tried to jump out because I figured, that was my first reaction to get away from him. And he pulled me back by my arm, almost broke my arm, and then ultimately threw me out of the vehicle onto Houston Street. And I was knocked unconscious. And, I'm calling you Vinny. Is it okay to call you Vinny or Vincent? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mom called me Vinny. It's okay.
Okay. So, Vinny, I still have this love-hate relationship with New York City, because here I am laying on the ground and people are walking over my body. And only one woman from California, from East LA, beautiful Latin woman, stopped and held me until the ambulance came. She called, 911. He had taken off. He left me there. And that day as I was coming to, I could hear her saying, it's okay, I'm not leaving you, where the ambulance is on the way. And from that point of view, I could see a taxi cab open door, and I could see this man's feet. And he was screaming at her. He was screaming, get in the fucking cab, get in the cab now. And you don't know her. You don't owe her anything. And she's like, I can't leave her, And the cab door slammed and he took off. So I tell you that because it took a couple years for me to find her, but I finally had someone track her down in East LA, and I called her one day to thank her, which was an amazing experience to be able to do that, But anyway, that was my assault that was really messed up, because I had contusions. I had a fractured pelvis. My tailbone, my coccyx was severely bruised. Like, I couldn't sit for a couple of weeks. And I was in such a state of shock when I got home from the hospital. I was barricaded in my fifth floor walk-up apartment in New York City. I was alone. I had no family in the city. I had Vinny Vella, who lived in the building, but I really needed help, because they sent me home with a bag of drugs. And, I've never been a pill popper, might have smoked pot in high school, or, I like my wine, but never been a pill popper. And here I was, with this bag of psychotic drugs and drugs that they really wanted me out of the hospital. They just wanted me out of there because of his celebrity status, if you want to say. The paparazzi just wanted the money shot. They wanted my black eye. They wanted to sell that story. So they were all over the hospital, and the hospital, it was a circus. They just wanted me out of there. And they sent me home in a cab with a brown paper bag of drugs. I recently showed my husband that brown bag. I've kept it in a container stored away with all my medical records. And I'm recently married, 3 years, September 10th. So, Thanks. Thank you. I'm very happy. My husband's pretty amazing, and I'm very open with him. Like, I tell him in detail what I went through because he needs to understand the trauma that I experienced so he can understand when my anxieties are triggered, where it's coming from,
Yeah.
So I recently pulled that bag out. I said, I want to show you something. I said, I would be dead because I was reaching for these pills. Because my pupils were the size of saucers. So I was still in a state of shock when they released me.
Yeah.
I was still vomiting from the concussion. I was a mess. And just reaching for these pills. And my sister called from New Jersey. My sister had battled leukemia many years, and she wasn't well enough to hop in a car or go to the city and pick me up. So she called friends. And my friends came to the city to rescue me. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but trauma is something that really, it messes with your head so badly that you block out time. You have these moments of time that are blacked out, So when my friends came, I assumed that they came, they got me, and they took me home to my family. And I was talking to my friend Christina one day. This is like months after what happened. And I said, you stayed overnight when you came to get me? I was trying to connect the dots and remember the timeline. And she just looked at me and she said, Lisa, I was there for a week. And
wow.
Yeah. And I just started crying, because I was so freaked out that I didn't remember a whole week of time, So
that's a serious head trauma right there.
Yeah. So that's why when I met Captain Smith and we really got to know each other, we were talking about PTSD. We were talking about trauma. We were talking about her injuries in Bosnia. We were talking about what happened to me. And there were so many times that her and I related to each other. And, I just looked at Leslie and I'm like, it's crazy. I'm a civilian. You're a veteran. And in no way am I ever trying to compare my trauma to war. I mean, I have such high regard for every veteran, every man and woman that protects and serves us. I'm very grateful. But the commonalities and some things that we were sharing is the very thing that created a bond and a trust and a friendship. And we're still really good friends to this day. And then I realized, wow, that's kind of cool that a civilian and a veteran can actually talk to each other and bond and become friends, because I always felt kind of intimidated. I always want to say thank you for your service, but it just sounds so generic. It never sounds really like, heartfelt.
Yeah.
So that's how my advocacy work really broadened from working a lot with women and their families who had fled, to shelters because of domestic violence situations, and then becoming a keynote speaker for the YWCA, traveling across the country, sharing my story in hopes that I could help someone in that audience,
Yeah.
And, a lot of times I really didn't want to get on stage and do it. I would have this moment right, backstage where I would go, why the fuck am I doing this? Oh my God. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. I understand that completely.
Yeah. But then I would pray and I would just say, dear God, I believe you put me on this path for a purpose, and I will embrace this purpose. And maybe there's a reason why I'm supposed to be here at the University of Dartmouth, Mass today, speaking about my story and helping whoever's here. And sure enough, there would always be one or two people that would come up to me and just kind of pull me aside and say, here's my number. I was raped 40 years ago and never told anyone, and I'm still dealing with the trauma. Or I'd have a big brawly professor with glasses, someone that you never, ever expect to come up to you with tears in their eyes and say, I was abused as a child. Thank you for coming to our school. And thank you for sharing this. This really helped a lot. And, and then you're on your way home going, okay, now I get it. That's why I was supposed to be there.
Yeah, man, that's incredible though. I love how you were able to turn your story into a way of helping others. That's something that I think a lot of us veterans should be doing more of. And I saw that you had a organization called Right to Heal. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I always go a right to heal because they're
Right to Heal is in WR. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not RIGHT, but WRI.
Yes. Yes. Because,
and I love that, but go ahead, please.
Thank you. No, writing had always been part of my world. As a kid, I would write short stories and I had a very, vivid imagination and a lot of characters up there in my head. And, I would put it into story form and sometimes I would draw little illustrations to go along with it. So I think, having like a cinematic kind of point of view on things all the time, seeing it and seeing the story. So writing was a big part of healing because during those days when I was released from the hospital and I was in bed and vomiting and sick, and I would have a legal pad next to my bed and I would just pour out words. And it felt like, a purging, I would just be like pain, shame, why, and one of the old Italian ladies in our building said, Lisa, it's just an Italian thing. She did. And I was like, what? What do you mean? My brother's Italian. He doesn't beat his wife, like that's such.
Oh man, that's
it's true though, right?
The old school ways are very different as well. I'm glad currently, I have kids, I have daughters, and so I'm glad the society doesn't see it like that anymore. Try and justify it.
Yes. And that was my writing, like, Italian thing, question mark. That was one of the things that I kept writing down over and over. And it became, I guess, therapeutic in a way because I was really purging the pain and the emotional trauma that I just couldn't deal with. It was overwhelming. And he continued to beat me up further in the press because he had the power, the money, and he had a PR person on his payroll. So he had the things I didn't have, like, the best lawyers, so that.
Did you ever mention his? I mean, I imagine I never looked exactly what his name was. Do you just not mention it intentionally?
Yes, because I don't. There's no reason to. I mean, it's public.
I'm sure people can figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Why give him the energy or any extra PR?
And his character name on the show is pretty ironic when they do look it up because
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I found what I found interesting. Your organization, Right to Heal, is so aligned with what I have led a lot of veterans and first responders to do as well. Is we're finishing up a book now with, I think, 7 different authors, and we're going to be publishing that soon. And part of the program that we run with our organization here is that we help a lot of veterans and first responders kind of put their, I guess, I don't know if it is trauma, but it's also trauma, but life and different things, I guess, dissecting kind of deeply into their upbringings and what are some of their trigger points in life through writing.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, I was like, man, that's pretty crazy because it aligns really well with what we do. And I find it very important for guys to write. And that's why I even just recently partnered with an organization that is publishing veterans and first responders books called Valor Press. And so we're pushing forward and helping people continue to write their story because I too find a lot of value in writing. And I just came to that more later in my life than earlier because I started using writing as a therapeutic tool, and it just kind of continued to evolve, and very fortunate to be able to be a writer on television and continue to hopefully kind of steer, some of these films and to be able to tell honest dialogue on veterans and first responders experiences. And so I think it's really cool that you did that. And then that leads me into the heroic episodes that you started doing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that as well? I mean, you're using your story to inspire others and then finding this connection to the veterans that is kind of stuck profoundly with you, which I really appreciate because, you don't have a lot of people who lean into our world often in Hollywood. I feel like we have such rich stories of success and these resiliency stories that we don't often get to tell.
So
and
true.
So when someone sees that that's outside of our circle, and I don't only say outside of our circle, like I think veterans, we know it, but like when people, I guess, give us platforms to say those things, I think it's extremely valuable. So I appreciate that you kind of started focusing on that. And so I'd love to hear more about the heroic episodes and what you plan to do with that.
Sure. And I think it's amazing what you're doing with writing. It seems like when you think about writing, writing for songs, for lyrics, like anything we do, our words are so powerful and so healing. But yes, through Leslie, through that friendship, she's a Gary Sinise ambassador. So I met Joe Mantegna through a friend in the business, and Joe really liked what I was doing, and he came on as our executive producer. We have a long way to go. We're in development. I've written the first 3 episodes. We have 3 more to write for the first season. And that's why I'm trying to promote this as much as possible, because I really need military muscle, I say, because these stories are inspiring. Not every story is about, doom and gloom, because there are inspiring humanitarian stories. And what I found through my 12 and a half years of interviewing military men and women, all branches of service, all wars, what I found is a large majority of them return home and continue to give back to their communities. And they don't do it for the adoration or, they do it under the radar. They do it because that's how they're built. And I think that's amazing. And I think there's a lot of value in teens, at-risk teens in underserved communities. And
absolutely.
That can really benefit. And that's part of heroic episodes. The premise of the storyline is about a veteran who's injured, returns home to urban environment, and he bonds with this young teen who's being pulled into this violent gang life. And they wind up having this friendship, this bond. They wind up saving each other and helping each other and healing the whole community. And the veteran and his military brothers become these mentors in a community that's starving for this support and this need of a mentor-mentee relationship, because a lot of the kids don't have dads. And they're being pulled into a life that's really violent, Yeah. And I, Vinny, I think about, I'm newly married, like I said, but I think about how can I have a lasting impact? Like when I'm gone, what happens? Because I've met with so many nonprofits and veterans organizations and veterans-owned businesses. A lot of the nonprofits, especially, they always say to me, what's going to happen once we're gone? Like the board is getting older. The younger generation doesn't really have an interest in coming into the nonprofit. We hate to see it die.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired me. All these amazing stories from my 12 and a half years of interviews. That's what really drove me to adapt the writing. That very short film that I did with Captain Smith, I adapted it to a series because there's just too many veteran stories. They're vast, they're broad. And the only way you can hold, a platform that can hold all these stories is an episodic. And the most important part of heroic episodes, the business plan, will employ veterans, just like my first experience having Leslie on set, having those veterans on my short films. Heroic episodes will employ veterans. It will provide at-risk teens with apprenticeships on set so they can reimagine their future. And it'll tell these amazing stories of our heroes, including first responders. It's a big part of the storyline. And if you can envision every episode, we push that credit roll to the side and we have someone that comes on who's, a veteran-owned business, a leader in their community, a nonprofit organization, a VFW, an American Legion. I mean, we can spotlight all these organizations. And in my mind, a successful TV series has the ability to make enough money where we can give back to all these organizations. Because I'm really getting sick and tired of going to VFW meetings and hearing membership is low. We need money. We have to pay the bills. It breaks my heart because I'm going, this part of our society in our country can't fall apart. We need these organizations. And I think it's just that they're kind of antiquated in a lot of ways. And we just need to infuse them with some new energy and something new that can engage the younger veterans. And a TV series to me is the answer.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy because and I know how hard it is to get funding to the industry is so challenging, man. And those who are listening, like I get hundreds of emails of people like, hey, you should do this film. Roy Benavides film. Everyone's like, tell his story. I'm like, I'd love to if I had if we had the financial backing. And film industry is one to produce a film that has that is quality, that looks good, all those things. It takes money, right? And then outside of that, after you produce this thing, I'm talking pre-production, production, post-production, and like it's ready to rock. Then you need distribution.
Yep.
Most people don't care. Like I produced a documentary with some buddies. It was I think it's an incredible story, still an incredible story. And what I find fascinating is that we couldn't get distribution at all. We couldn't get Netflix, Hulu, and anyone, not one organization, not one major, I don't even know, network wanted it.
Yeah.
And it was produced by some highly, highly trained 20 something years in the business. You know what I mean? Like professionals. It didn't matter. That story for them, they didn't see how they could make a revenue back from it. So why would they ever, why would they ever partner with us? And so that's what's so challenging. We did a story about the Jason Dunham story, which is a Medal of Honor recipient, a Marine who jumped on a hand grenade to save a couple of his friends. We have every interview you can think of. We have so much about it, from the parents to the family. The story is just heavy, but honest and gorgeous in a way. It's just crazy. But Hollywood themselves, don't allow the voice of that to go mainstream for whatever reason. I'm not I just don't understand it. And again, I only think the way the big Hollywood works is can they make money off of it? And if they felt they couldn't make 10x off of what they either purchase it by or partner with us,
right,
then it's not worth their time. Yeah, that drives me nuts because I've tried to make veteran films just like this, right? And what you're doing right now is, even having Joe Mantegna, that's really awesome to have him as an executive producer. But you and I know still you're going to face all these roadblocks. It doesn't matter, right?
The work is not done, man. The work is not done.
Yeah, you still have to find a way someone to support financially to raise the money to get it done. And that's the most challenging part about the industry. That's why I don't want to. I admire. But please go ahead.
You are so right. And so I talk to my husband about this all the time. He's in finance. He's not in filmmaking at all or acting or anything. He hates being on camera, right? But I said to him, "Okay, well, what are my options? I continue to push this boulder up the mountain, and I continue to engage people that are like-minded, that care about trauma, healing, veterans, first responders, our communities, our future, employing veterans. Look, I can't fix the VA. I can't fix our government, but I can do this. I could do this, And I can't walk away from those experiences in years prior that I've had with Captain Smith, with Leslie, with Vietnam veterans, veterans who had just returned from Afghanistan, who were on set with me, who embraced me and said, I love this. I want to do this every day. I haven't felt this camaraderie in years, or I miss this camaraderie, whatever. I can't walk away from those experiences. I feel not just a responsibility, I feel a passion to continue that feeling for those who have put their life on the line for me, for everyone. So that drives me. And what are my choices? Keep going, keep pushing, or give up. And I'm just not the kind of person that gives up. I'm a Leo. So, it's like, I don't like giving up, and especially when I know something can help and have value and employ veterans. So that's why I said, you know what, let's start a campaign and that's why I'm very grateful to be here talking to you, because I need our veterans to help us with this lift. I do. And I admire what everyone did with Range 15. I think that's amazing. Like, you raised your own budget, but you're right. You need an end game. You need distribution. And I know in my heart that there's a distributor out there for it. I know there's a streaming platform out there for it, because it has other storylines in it. And that's the younger generation, the teens who are living in this violence. I met with Kobe Williams from Ceasefire. He's a violence interrupter, and coming from gang life and then transitioning. He said it best to me in our first Zoom meeting. He said, Lisa, I'll put it this way. I was always part of the problem. Now I'm part of the solution. And I just love that. Yeah. And I'm like, they're the kind of mentors that I'm bringing on as consultants. Those are the kind of partnerships, because, there's just too much violence. And I don't want to leave this planet knowing I could have done something creative, inspiring, that employs veterans, that heals, that helps, that provides all these resources, and that has the potential to transcend generations. Like Dick Wolf and Jim Burrows, man, I want a marriage like that, because those series that they created, they transcend generations. And that's what we want. Yeah. We want to keep our promise to employ veterans. We want to keep our promise to have veterans as consultants and writers on the series, so that when someone like you is watching an episode, you don't sit there and go, oh, that's bullshit. I want you to go, oh, that's dope. That's awesome. That's great. I love it. I want you to have that kind of response.
You must have watched me on interviews before, because I do say that's dope.
Yes. Yes. Well, I have
I like it.
Young actors that I coach, and they say, Miss Lisa, you have to say dope. I'm like, okay. I get it.
Kids these days.
But it's the subtext, as we know. So that's why I said, let's start a campaign where we ask every veteran, every patriot, every Gold Star family, every friend, every family member that cares about the same things that we do. Let's ask them all for $5, just $5. That's the campaign. And that's what I need help getting out to the masses of patriots and veterans, because think about the number of veterans in the state of New Jersey alone. We have 300,000 approximately veterans, $5 from each. Now we're starting to get a budget cooking, and then you start extending that campaign to VFWs, American Legions, just everyone that really cares, like-minded individuals. It's amazing what you can do. So
it's tough, man. The crowdfunded space is so
saturated,
I guess. And so I understand the frustration of trying to do that. But either way, I will share it on my page, and I hope that helps in any way. And we'll share the link on the bottom of our podcast. Those of you guys who are listening, who are looking for that link, we'll have it below. And you guys can donate $5 to try and help us. Us, I say, because I now feel connected to this project. If you need my help in any capacity, just so you know, like I'm willing to support in any way, whether it be writing, filming, acting, I don't care. Use me, I'll help. Because it's important.
Yes, thank you. I was hoping you'd say that, and I don't have to pitch you on it. So that's awesome. I love it.
No, you don't have to pitch me on it. I would like, I'd help any veteran project. It's just the problem is, like, I just know how hard it is. And I'm like, man, I don't want them to get frustrated. I don't want people to get frustrated with it or the person trying to create it, because it is challenging. Look, I've been doing this now for going up on 12 years of trying to get into the film industry. And it's just been, it's been ups and downs. And so, I'm a resilient person, so I'm okay with that. Not everyone is willing to go through the ups and the downs and all that with film and television. But Lisa, you got my attention with this. I'm very interested in helping.
Awesome.
And seeing how I can just at least bring a little bit more attention to it, so we can definitely continue to talk offline and figure that out.
I would love that.
See where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Too easy.
And, we have a lot of veteran owned businesses, on our radar. We've been watching and, waiting for the right moment to approach them, because we want to see, like, the central character is this VFW bar in the series. You know how Cheers has that bar, and that's how you learn about all the characters and their lives, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like that, but it's dramatic, and it's veterans, and it's an amazing, bar where everyone feels at home. And I want nothing more than to see, Black Rifle Coffee on that bar, or 21st Amendment. I have a Marine friend in Vero Beach, Florida, that has an amazing distillery. And there are so many veterans who are in business that have distilleries and different products, that we just want to see that series packed with their products and supporting them and promoting them. And that's why it's so important to me, because I think about, how do we keep this going? How do we pass it on generation to generation, so that when a veteran comes home and they're transitioning home, that they can transition onto a set, still have the camaraderie, and learn some hard skills that they can, have reimagine their future, once they're home, and not feel lost or overwhelmed with that feeling of transition, And I put, I love it. To date, I have a veteran graduating veterans drone training. I put 14 veterans through their Part 107 training. I'm a Part 107 pilot. I use drones in filmmaking, and that really stood out on set, because the veterans were like, oh yeah, I used drones in the Army, or I used, drones. And they were really drawn to drones. So I thought, okay, let's start putting vets through their Part 107 training, so that at least we're providing them with these hard skills. And there's so many, there's so many industries they can go into. Of course, the film industry, but agriculture, real estate, search and rescue, drones are multi-billion-dollar growing industry. So,
yeah, it's massive these days. I just hired a drone guy for some stuff I needed myself. So yeah, that's a good industry to get into. That's awesome. I like that you guys are doing that. You guys are doing that under your organization as well? Under my
nonprofit. Yeah. Heroic Episodes is a for-profit, because it's a TV series that we're developing.
Yeah.
My Right to Heal is a 501c3 nonprofit. And I formed that in 2006 after the year following my assault. I knew I wanted to do something that was using writing and creative. And I was presented a cheesy reality show that I said, I can't do that, man. That goes against my grain. That's not me. And, they wanted to basically exploit my assault because of who I was engaged to. And that did not, that went against my core values, So.
Yeah, good. Well, Lisa, I really appreciate it, man. I think there's a lot of stuff here that I think is awesome, and I think the audience is going to love it. Let's circle back just one-on-one one of these days and talk about where you're at with the film and where I can help with. I'd love to see a little bit more on it, like what's going on in the background.
Yep.
And maybe there's somewhere I could also further assist with it. So I'm absolutely interested in that.
Awesome.
Would love to bring you in to talk to some of our veterans and first responders that we have. We do these Wednesday night calls with Light the Fuse. I'd love to have you in there one day and just kind of communicate with them. Just kind of give them an hour of your time.
Definitely. I was going to say, I would love to donate my time in any way that you can, use me. And I would love to share how writing was so powerful and healing for me.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Like to have them talk to you about that. But I'll put everything, any link you want at the bottom of this podcast, but as well as, mention right now to the audience where they can find you, how they can support you.
Yeah, sure. Please. Heroicepisodes.org/donate. So that's heroicepisodes.org/donate. And that's our fundraiser. But of course, on that site, you'll get to see our team. Joe Mantegna is on there. Ronnie Marmo, wonderful actor who's a producer on it. And then a right2heal.com is my nonprofit.
Awesome. Yes, we'll put all that in. I appreciate it. Lisa, thanks so much for doing this early in the morning on Sunday.
It's cool.
I'm
sorry.
I
appreciate it. It's cool. I appreciate it. I just really am grateful. And like I said, I'm a fan of yours, and I love what you're doing. And I've watched your podcast episodes and everything that you're doing and your acting. And my husband and I watched Lucy Shimmers, and it was very sweet. Love that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we just finished the first season of Homestead, another like faith-based film, and then we're going into season 2 here soon. So it's pretty exciting. Hoping
That's
to
awesome.
continue to build credits. You know how it goes.
Yes, yes. Keep doing it. You love it. You keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.